All right, today your objective is to use the fundamental counting principle, which we've discussed last class, and the permutation formula, so that's going to be new, in order to count the number of possible outcomes of a desired event. Shout out to Ms. Bazinski here. Permutations are picky, and you will see why in a second that they are picky and what that means. Okay? So, try to remember that. Permutations, picky. Alright. So, sometimes if you are, out in the real world and you get a job planning concerts, you might be in charge of planning one of the most anticipated concert tours of the summer. So this time there's going to be 4 groups, and all 4 of those groups will appear in the concert, which means you're going to have somebody go first, second, third, and fourth. Okay, so you have 4 slots available. Here's your first slot, your second slot, your third, and your last slot. Okay? So here are your 4 groups: T-Swizzle, Rihanna, Bruno Mars, and the Queen herself, Beyonce. One of your jobs is to determine the order in which the groups will perform. Each group is going to go once. Okay? So how many different ways can we put together this 4-group concert? So a lot of people got tripped up last class about what to put here. This is the options you have to choose from. Okay? Options to choose from. Okay? So, for that first slot, we have 4 groups to choose from. It can be either of those 4. Now, the second slot, there's only 3 people remaining, and no one's performing more than once. So now you only have 3 spots available. And then you only have 2 to choose from, and then you'll be down to 1. And just like last class, you multiply. 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 is 24 ways. Okay, and that is called a permutation. You may or may not recognize this also as 4 factorial. Okay, so you could do that on your calculator, which would be, you would hit the 4 button, and then the math, M-A-T-H, and then you would go over to P-R-B, and down to the exclamation point. Okay, so some of you in Algebra 2 might have been discussing 4 factorial. All right. So, a permutation is just an ordered, I'm going to actually type this. Whoa, doesn't need to be that big. An ordered arrangement of items that occurs when no item is going to be repeated. So just like in a concert, apparently in our cases, there's no encore, so nobody is performing more than once. And the order of your arrangement makes a difference, which is why Ms. Bazinski says it's picky. Okay? So if you want to put that little note in, permutations are picky. You can see it's kind of a alliteration. All right. So then, another example would be, based on their long-standing contribution to rock music, we decide that Beyonce, the Queen herself, needs to perform last at the 4-group Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Bruno Mars, and Beyonce concert. So now we have a stipulation. Beyonce has to go last. So we still have the 4 people going. So performing first, performing second, performing third, and performing fourth. But since Beyonce has to go last, she's our only option for the 4th performer because she has to bring the house down and be the last performer because she's a diva. So that means we only have one option for the fourth performer, which leaves us 3 others to choose from for the first, and then nobody's going more than once, so then you have 2 and 1, okay? And you would just do 3 times 2 times 1, which means 6 ways. So sometimes things are going to happen where you only have one option because they're forcing you to go a certain way, okay? So in this case, you would do, if you wanted to use your calculator, you could do 3 factorial. All right. Number 3, you need to arrange your favorite books along a small shelf. How many different ways can you arrange the books, assuming that the order of the books makes a difference to you? So that right there is what makes it a permutation. So next class, we're going to see things that aren't permutations. So you have 7 books. We're arranging them on the shelf. So you have 7 slots. In the beginning, you have 7 books to choose from. Then you're down to 6, to 5, to 4, to 3, to 2, and to 1. Do the multiplication or just key in 7 factorial. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. And you get 5,040 ways. All right, my favorite question is number 4. Because one time this was on a test and somebody said right after one another. So, number 4, how many different ways can 5 airplanes line up for a departure on a runway? Well, you have 5 slots. So you could do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, because you're not going to line up a plane more than once. So 5 factorial would be 120 ways. All right, flip it over to the back. Here's where it gets fun. Now, number 5, you're coaching a little league basketball player. There's 9 players on the team. You need to choose 5 of them for your starting lineup. The order you pick the team matters. How many starting lineups can you form? So hopefully the difference, you can see the difference in this problem is we aren't using all of our players. So in the book example, we wouldn't be lining up all of our books, or we wouldn't be lining up all of our planes. So in this case, we aren't using all of our players. I'm going to type it since it's easier. Or we aren't using all of the items. Okay, so that's what makes it different. So, if you set this up, I'm going to go the long way in the beginning and then I'll show you the shortcut. You have 5 slots available on a basketball team. You have 9 players to choose from, and then that goes down to 8 left because you're not having more than one. You can't repeat players. Okay, so you would do 9 times 8 times 7 times, whoa dear, I forgot the 6, times 6 times 5. And you could have 15,120 lineups. Okay? Or you could use this fancy formula right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to do this on your calculator. Okay? So that on your calculator is, N represents the total amount of items. Typically this is the bigger number. R represents the amount of items you need. Okay? So in our example up at the top, for the basketball team, N would be 9 because we need 9 players, and R would be, whoa dear, R would be however many we can choose, so we need 5. So So we would key this in on our calculator as you'd hit the 9 button, then you'd hit the math button, you would go to PRB, guess what that stands for? Probability. Then you would go to NPR, National Public Radio, and then you would hit 5, and then you would hit enter. And that should give you the same answer. If it doesn't, please let me know. You always put the N first, NPR. Okay? So if you want to practice that on your calculator, that is the way you should do it on your calculator. All right. Again, permutations are picky, which means we have specific spots things need to go. So, you and your 19 friends. So, you and your 19 friends. Now, this is where people who are really super smart realize that if it's you and your 19 friends, that means N equals 20. And you'll see that in a second. Have decided to form an internet marketing consulting firm. The group needs you to choose 3 officers: CEO, operating manager, and treasurer. Okay? And how many ways can those offices be filled? So in this case, we need 3. So we have 3 slots available. You could do it like this. You could start with 20 times 19 times 18, or you could just key this in on your calculator, 20 NPR, which would look like this on your calculator, 3. And you get, dun, 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 6,840 different ways. When in doubt, you can always label ways. Okay? All right. Now, you got to make sure you read through the problems because the first number isn't always going to be the N. So for the segment on the radio show, a DJ can play 7 records. There's 13 records to select from. So remember I said N is typically the bigger number. So in this case, N would be 13. You get to choose 7. Okay? So the long way to this would be 13 times 12 times 11 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7, because those are the first 7 numbers. Or you could do this on your calculator. 13P7. And you get a massive 8,648,640 ways. Okay? All right. Your last one, I will leave you to be able to get hopefully on your own. You have 8 actors and you have 3 roles. Okay? 8 actors and 3 roles. So you decide your N, you decide your R, 8 actors, 3 roles. Decide what you put, maybe, however you want to do it, and then give an answer. Okay? So obviously you don't want to leave yours blank. I'll be coming around and checking yours. Number 9, how many arrangements can be used using 3 letters of the word home? So in this case, N represents the total number of letters you have, which is 4. And you would need 3. Okay? So again, I'll be coming around checking this. Whew. All right. Moving on to page 5. This is just a little bit more complicated. Permutations of duplicate items. So we will be using this formula. Okay? And we're going to have more than one letter repeated. So our n's always going to be however many letters there are. So if you want to make that note, make the note that the n is always the total letters in the word. Okay? And then from here, it kind of depends on how many letters we have repeated. So we're going to have P items identical, and then if we have more, we're going to have Q, and then more, we're going to have R. Okay? So if we're looking at this word, Anna, A-N-A, it has 3 letters, which means the N is 3. Okay? So the top of your fraction is going to be 3 factorial. Okay? Which is really 3 times 2 times 1. Okay? And then you're going to look for duplicate letters. So you have, if we're concentrating on the A's here, we have 2 A's, which means our P value is going to be 2. And then that's the only one repeating. So you would just do 3 factorial times 2 factorial, which turns out to be 3 ways. So if you do not know how to calculate the factorial, please let me know. Okay? Next one, in Mississippi. So I usually group my letters so I know which ones I've done. There are 11 total letters, so you have 11 factorial on top. And then we're going to see what we're going to have to divide it by. So the I's, there are 4 of them. Okay? So you're going to have a 4 factorial. And then the S's, probably can't see that. There are 4 S's, which means you have another 4 factorial. And then lastly, you have 2 P's. So you have a 2 factorial. And then you would key this in on your calculator. Please let me know if you do not know how to key this in on your calculator. These are parentheses. You need to be using parentheses. So you're shooting for this number, 34,650 ways. Okay? So I think these are the more complicated ones. You really want to make sure that you keep track of your letters. Okay, so in number 3, I like to put, N is number of letters. Okay, so in this case, osmosis has 7 letters. And then I go to my O's because O's are repeating letters. There are 2 O's, so we're going to eventually be dividing by a 2 factorial. And then I go to my S's. There are 3 S's, so pick another variable. So we're going to have to divide by a 3. So we've used the O's and the S's. Okay? And that's it. There's not the M's aren't repeated and the I's aren't repeated. So on my calculator, I would key this in, 7 factorial. Remember to show your work so it's very easy for us to check through. Okay, 3 factorial. And that should give you 420 ways. Okay? All right, the last one I will set up for you and you will have to calculate. So, I would kind of group this. The total number of letters is, if you count correctly, hopefully I did, 11. And then you want to do some S's because they repeat. So tell me how many S's, and why don't we just make that P. Tell me how many N's there are because those repeat. And that's going to be R. And then I think the other repeating letter is E. So please let me know if I missed any. Okay? So here you're telling me how many S's are there, how many N's are there, how many E's are there. And so you'll end up dividing by 11 factorial divided by Hopefully I'll check this number, and then you want to tell me how many ways that is. Okay? So I will be around to check that number. All right, so that concludes the portion of the actual lesson. Okay, so your goal today is to complete video pages, I believe it's 3, 4, and 5. You definitely want to pick up the classwork assignment. We're going to do closure at 12:20. So my goal would be to start the classwork assignment before lunch and finish it after lunch. I will be around to answer questions and make sure we're all on the right track. Remember, you want to stay on schedule with your pacing guide.